Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've ever wondered what actually separates a standard uphill sales pitch from a deeply trusted, high-converting partnership, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking a massive go-to-market secret weapon. We're talking about the FinOps Advisory Director. Now, this isn't about traditional selling, right? It's about deploying a strategy that fundamentally flips the dynamic of a prospect call on its head. We're going to explore how bringing actual, real-world practitioner experience into your sales motion creates just this entirely new level of trust and authority. So get ready, because the data and the methodology behind this, absolutely fascinating.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a massive hook. 5x. I really want that number to sink in for a second. Bringing a practitioner, specifically a FinOps advisory director, into a prospect call acts as a literal 5x win rate multiplier. Let me say that again. A 5x increase in your win rate. We are not talking about a little 10 or 20% bump here. We're talking about fundamentally transforming the likelihood of closing a deal. But, why? What is it about this specific presence that turns a standard conversation into a guaranteed win? Well, it all really comes down to credibility, scale, and the undeniable power of having just been there and done that.
And that unmatched credibility, it comes straight from the source. We're talking about folks trusted in enterprise environments at the highest possible scale, places like Wells Fargo and Starbucks. When a FinOps advisory director steps into a meeting, they aren't bringing theoretical concepts. They're bringing the actual operational muscle memory of managing cloud finance for some of the largest, most complex organizations on the planet. For a prospect who's just trying to navigate their own massive cloud spend, seeing that their advisor has successfully navigated the intricacies of a globally recognized enterprise, man, it just instantly shatters any skepticism. It builds an immediate, unshakable foundation of trust.
So the core of their consultative philosophy is honestly pretty simple. They've done the work. These directors aren't just reading from some perfectly polished marketing brochure or leaning on a theoretical script. They have spent years actually running cloud finance at scale. They've felt the real pressure of ballooning budgets. They've navigated the messy complexities of multi-cloud environments, and they've lived through the real-world consequences of architectural choices. Because they've done the work, they bring a level of empathy and practical wisdom that you literally cannot fake. It's basically the difference between someone trying to sell you a parachute and someone who has actually jumped out of a plane with one.
And this deep background completely changes the temperature of the room. When your prospect's CFO or VP of engineering sit down for a call, you got to remember, they are incredibly used to being sold to. But a FinOps advisory director meets them head-on as a peer. They speak plainly about the real trade-offs involved in cloud management. It's no longer the standard vendor-to-buyer relationship. It instantly becomes an executive-to-executive, peer-to-peer conversation. They speak the exact same language, they understand the exact same pressures, and they command immediate respect because they're recognized as equals who genuinely understand the executive viewpoint. Now, this peer-to-peer dynamic works because it's firmly rooted in experience, not theory. This is where the real battle scars come into play. They've made hard decisions on financial commitments, they've dug deep into the granular math of unit economics, they've had to react in real time to massive anomaly responses when a cloud bill just randomly spiked overnight. But honestly, the most powerful tool they bring is the honesty to share what didn't work, not just what did. Imagine how refreshing it is for a prospect to hear an expert say, "Hey, we tried this approach, it failed, and here is exactly why." That kind of vulnerability, born of actual experience, builds an immense, almost unbreakable level of trust.
And, while they can absolutely hold their own with the C-suite, their versatility means they're just as comfortable diving deep into the weeds. A true FinOps practitioner is entirely at home in the detail. So when the conversation shifts from high-level strategy down to the gritty realities of tagging structures, cost allocation methodologies, or complex forecasting models, they don't skip a beat. And perhaps most importantly, they are just as comfortable saying, "It depends," when the honest answer is nuanced. They don't just offer cookie-cutter solutions, they offer deep technical realism.
Think about a typical prospect call for a second. The rapid-fire feature dumping, the pressure, the standard uphill selling motion we all know way too well. Now contrast that with offering counsel before a pitch. Bringing a senior practitioner into the room acts as a massive pressure release valve. It completely shifts the tone, transforming the whole interaction from selling to advising. When you remove the pressure of the hard sell and replace it with genuine, experienced counsel, you give the buyer breathing room. You give them the psychological space to clearly think the decision through, knowing they have a trusted advisor right there helping them weigh the pros and cons.
The absolute linchpin of this entire strategy really boils down to a single, powerful truth. The most useful thing we offer isn't always the product. It's an experienced peer who speaks truthfully. I mean, really think about that. In a complex, high-stakes B2B environment, The product is just one piece of the puzzle. The ultimate differentiator, the thing that actually closes complex deals and creates that 5x multiplier we talked about, is the presence of an experienced peer who has the courage and the authority to speak absolute truth to the prospect.
So how do we actually operationalize this? Well, meet your co-pilots. As a sales rep driving a massive enterprise deal, you are the hero of the story. You own the relationship, you drive the strategy. But every great hero needs a co-pilot with specialized skills to navigate the most turbulent parts of the journey, right? The FinOps advisory directors are those co-pilots. They are the highly specialized experts you bring into the cockpit when you need to navigate complex financial turbulence, build that executive alignment, and ultimately win the day.
Let's formally introduce the highly specialized co-pilots you have in your corner. First up, we have Ben Linares, handling the West and Chi regions, bringing a super deep engineering specialization. Alongside him is Patrick Brogan, covering the SENE and OHV regions, and he brings a really robust finance and business specialization. Both of these guys are deeply certified FinOps experts. So whether your prospect needs to get super technical with engineering architecture or dive into complex financial modeling with the CFO, you have a specialized former practitioner ready to jump into the call.
When Ben or Patrick engage, they use a very specific advisory approach. It is always expert-driven, leaning entirely on that practitioner background. It's outcome-based. They aren't there just to chat, right? They're there to map solutions directly to the prospect's specific business goals. It relies heavily on a consultative approach, asking those hard questions to uncover the real pain points. And above all, it's entirely customized to the customer. Every single engagement feels uniquely tailored because it's based on the specific, complex realities of that particular prospect's cloud environment.
Behind the scenes, all of this translates to concrete pipeline generation support across three main pillars. First, in planning and strategy, they dive right in with you for deep account planning and org mapping, making sure you are targeting the exact right personas. Next, in intelligence and prep, they arm you with competitive intelligence and deep prep work so you can completely outmaneuver rivals. And finally, in direct execution, they run high-impact expert workshops and drive decision-maker execution. It's a clean, structural breakdown of how these directors act as an extension of your own strategic brain, really supercharging your go-to-market efforts from the ground up.
So the ultimate takeaway for you as a go-to-market professional is crystal clear. Leveraging these directors is the definitive method for supercharging your pipeline. By actively bringing in these experts for deep account planning and by leaning on their ability to host specialized expert workshops, you are actively driving product adoption and building massive, highly qualified pipeline. You are shifting away from just hoping a prospect sees the value to having an experienced peer definitively prove that value through shared experience.
There is a wealth of resources, content, and tools provided by your FinOps advisory directors waiting for you right now to help with your pipeline generation efforts. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to consider. We started this whole discussion by revealing a massive 5x win rate multiplier. So, ask yourself, if you have a massive, complex deal on the table, exactly how much pipeline are you willing to leave behind by not bringing an experienced peer into your very next prospect call? The secret weapon is there. It's time to use it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.